Almaz Tadesse looked at the paper in her hand one more time. The 34-year-old Ethiopian teacher sat in the village's only internet cafe, staring at the blank email page open on the screen. Microsoft Corporation, Bill Gates was written in the recipient box. "Maybe this is crazy," she muttered, "but I have to try for my students." Almaz had been teaching for 12 years in Gemechu, one of Ethiopia's most remote villages. She had 85 students, aged between 6 and 16, but none of them had ever seen a computer. They didn't even know the word internet. The nearest city was a 4-hour journey away, and most of her students had never left their village in their lives. That morning, her 12-year-old student Desta had asked her, "Teacher, how do other children in the world learn?" Almaz didn't know what to answer, because she didn't know either. That afternoon, she spent half her monthly salary to go to town. She sat in the internet cafe and thought for a long time. Then she began to write, "Dear Mr. Gates, my name is Almaz Tadesse. I teach in Gemechu village in Ethiopia. I have 85 students and none of them have seen a computer. They are very smart, very curious, but they don't have tools to learn about the world. I'm writing to you because maybe you can help. We are very poor but very hungry to learn. Please don't forget us. Teacher Almaz." After sending the email, she went home. Probably no reply will ever come, she thought. But at least I tried. 2 weeks passed. Almaz had forgotten about it, until that Wednesday morning, when a sound never heard before in the village was heard. Helicopter sound. Villagers came out of their houses, looked up at the sky. A large, white helicopter was landing in the village square, raising clouds of dust. Almaz also ran over. When she realized who was getting out of the helicopter, she was breathless. Bill Gates, the richest man in the world, had landed in Ethiopia's poorest village. "I'm looking for Almaz Tadesse," he said through his translator. Almaz stepped forward, her hands trembling. "I am Almaz." Gates walked toward her and smiled. "I received your letter, and I brought what I promised you." Gates had 2 engineers, a translator, and 3 large boxes with him. When they opened the boxes, the villagers were amazed. Inside were laptops, tablets and solar panels. "Almaz," Gates said, "in your letter you wrote that your students wanted to learn about the world. I came to bring the world to them." The tables set up in the village square that day were Gemechu's first technology lesson in history. Gates personally showed the children how to turn on a computer. When the children saw a map on screen for the first time, they screamed when they found their own village. 12-year-old Desta asked Gates, "Is the whole world in this little box?" Gates smiled. "Not just the world, Desta. All knowledge is there." But Gates's real surprise was bigger. That evening at the meeting with villagers, he announced, "I didn't come here just to give computers. I came to make a permanent change here." The next month, construction began in Gemechu village. As part of the Microsoft-funded project, fiber optic internet infrastructure came to the village. A computer laboratory powered by solar energy was established. And most importantly, Almaz's school became the region's first digital education center. 3 months later, something nobody in the village had imagined happened. Students began taking classes online with peers around the world. Desta joined NASA's children's program. 16-year-old Hanan was taking math classes from MIT. But the story didn't end there. Gates's visit to Gemechu caused a great response in the media. Technology companies, philanthropists and educational institutions from around the world turned to Ethiopia. The project called the Gemechu Model had proven that it was possible to bring technology to Africa's most remote villages. Within a year, 200 more villages in Ethiopia became digitalized. Companies like Microsoft, Google, Apple began competing to invest in Africa. Almaz was no longer just Gemechu's teacher. With the title African Digital Education Ambassador, she was attending conferences across the continent, teaching other teachers technology integration. 2 years later, Gates came again. This time he couldn't recognize Gemechu. The village was now like a small city. Young people had started their own technology companies. Desta, at 14, had won an international award with the agricultural app he developed. Almaz, Gates said, when you wrote that letter, did you imagine these things? Almaz smiled. No, Mr. Gates, I just wanted my students to see the world. But they changed the world. Gates looked around. Children in the village square were learning coding. Young people were doing agricultural research with drones. Elders were video calling their grandchildren on tablets. This isn't just technology, Gates said. This is the power of hope. That evening, Almaz went to the internet cafe where she wrote her first letter. Now this place had become the Almaz Tadesse Digital Center. She sat at the computer and wrote a new email. Dear Mr. Gates, when I wrote to you 2 years ago, I was only asking for help for my students. Today, they are helping children around the world. I cannot find words to thank you, but I can make you a promise. This story doesn't end here. We are dreaming bigger dreams. Almaz, this time after sending the email, she didn't worry, because now she knew dreams could come true. 5 years later, Desta was accepted into NASA's Young Engineer program. Hanan graduated from MIT and became Africa's first female technology CEO, and hundreds of children were educated in schools established with the Gemechu Model. Gates continued to visit Gemechu every year, no longer by helicopter, but by private plane to the village's own airport. Because Gemechu was no longer just a village, it was Africa's technology capital. When Almaz turned 40, she established her own teacher training institute. This institution, called Tadesse Institute, was training digital teachers across Africa. At the opening ceremony, Gates spoke. The letter Almaz courageously wrote changed not just a village, but an entire continent. This is proof that small actions can lead to big results. When Almaz also took the stage, her first words were, 12 years ago, Desta asked me, how do other children in the world learn? Today his question became the answer for millions of children. Desta, now 24 years old, and a NASA engineer, who was applauded standing in the hall, came on stage. My teacher didn't teach me computers, she taught me that dreams can come true. That night, Almaz visited her grandmother Salamowit's grave in the village cemetery. Leaning against the headstone, she whispered, Grandma, you always said education is the only treasure of poor people. You were right, but now we're sharing that treasure with the whole world. Stars were shining in the sky. Gemechu's lights could be seen from afar, and in hundreds of villages across Africa, children were studying at computers. It all started with a teacher's courageously written email, because sometimes the smallest steps are the beginning of the greatest journeys, and sometimes change begins with just pressing a send button. Final message. Almaz Tadesse's story reminds us that technology is not just the privilege of developed countries, but the right of all humanity. A teacher's brave email illuminated the future of millions of children, because education is not just information transfer, but hope transplantation. If this story touched you, share it. Maybe the story you share will give courage to another teacher in another village. And who knows, maybe they too will write an email that changes the world.